All right, folks, we're back. Another episode here, Jordan and myself. Got some interesting times going on in this country, so I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. Haven't heard from Jordan in a while, so he's been on a little bit of a vacation, if you will, for his university, as we used to call it growing up. But congratulations on your anniversary. You made it through another year.
We thrived through another year.
You thrived through another year.
Yeah, I think putting connotations of made is tough. Like, you eked by. Good for you, man.
I know,
You
right?
survived. You
That's
survived.
hey, no, I realize how that sounds now. That makes sense.
No, I mean, obviously, we all know what relationships bring. Like, you have to put work into them, but you plant seeds, and then depending what kind of seeds you plant, you grow either weeds or you grow flowers. And I think, this last year we had clearly some challenges. But anyways, yeah, it was a good weekend away. Went to South Carolina. It was a different kind of trip. Didn't have like a true agenda based off most things are around the country are still pretty much on lockdown. But it was cool because you go to a restaurant, they're like leaving Portland, Washington area. People are like in this fear bubble and they're just sheer anxiety around everything. And then you get to South Carolina and, people are like shaking hands and going to restaurants without masks on, trying to shove their forks through their masks and each other tomfoolery happening.
So how was that as far as that change? Because I know where you reside, it's different. Like here in Georgia, Alabama, I mean, we've been you still see some of the effects of this pandemic thing, but for the most part, people are going to work. They're going to going about their daily lives and whatnot, and I'm sure it's much different out there. Just, I can hear it by the way you're talking about it. So I'm sure it was a bit of a kind of, I don't want to say a culture shock, but a good welcome change, talking about being able to
Well,
shake somebody's hand for once again.
and I get it. Like if you want to be somewhat, cautious, I'm not tripping on that. I guess what I felt and my wife felt it too, when you're in that area, there was a sense of freedom and a stress-free environment. And it wasn't that, like Washington's beautiful. There's a lot of cool things that it offers, but it's so filled with anxiety of like, if you think for yourself here and you voice your opinion in any kind of format, you're like, dude, you're ostracized very quickly. Like if you don't go lock in toe with rank and file opinions, you're immediately like ousted from the island. And I think partially kind of where I'm trying to articulate here is when I went to South Carolina and then or North Carolina too is relatively similar, but definitely in South Carolina, just driving down the road, there was a sense of just ease and comfort and peace. Where here, it just anywhere you go, it just filled with anxiety and stress. And just, I'm talking not dealing with anybody directly, just there's a like a spirit, if you will, some kind of like aura or whatever you want to call it, that you just feel this pressure. And we went there and just like, man, your shoulders start to drop and you just feel comfortable. And, even with, post all this, racial tension, I think, obviously there's always been racial tension in our country, but the climax right now that we're dealing with, and some of it's phenomenal and some of it's toxic. And, a lot of people are going to end up getting harmed because of the negative fallout from some of these, extremists. But anyways, all that being said, even with that being said, there was people would be willing to talk to you and have conversations, open conversations, real dialogue, rawness, opinions, honesty. Out here, forget about it. It's fake. It's plasticky. And that's something I think there's a huge shift from one side of the country, in my opinion, anyways, to the other.
Yeah, it's I mean, you're able to speak on it better than I am. All I see is what I see via social media and whatnot. I don't watch the news, and so I definitely can see that, and I can see how that can really affect your mood, affect your well being, your mental state, and just your daily life as it is. Because, like I said, for me, it hasn't really been a big change. I mean, I what I do is I see people driving down the road with a mask on, and they're by themselves in the car, and I just laugh hysterically because it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I think masks are stupid, to a point, but yeah, they have their point. But yeah, so I can imagine that it feels much better to be able to kind of be back to somewhat of a norm. Um, And for me, it bothers me that people are so easily led astray, and they're people are so easily manipulated, and they fall right into line so quickly, so easily. And I'm like, you guys don't see the overall picture here, how quickly, like what's happening, how quickly things can turn from what you think is okay to really bad situation, just because you're such a good follower, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do exactly what the mainstream says. See where that gets you.
Well, and we're watching it right now. Like, so obviously I was a cop, so I understand, like, a couple tactics and a couple things about law enforcement, not a lot, but enough. And every issue from like the pandemic till the killer hornets to this issue now, people are experts because of what they hear on social or what they hear on the mainstream,
Yeah.
narrative, whatever those talking points are. People become the subject matter experts overnight with no knowledge base prior to. Um, so anyways, I guess one big thing I'm seeing right now is like this policing thing. Obviously I have a lot of good friends that I am very close to that are in law enforcement. Um, I also have, Black friends that are phenomenal people, and there's obviously a ton of opinions out there. And I think there's people that are truly hurting, and I don't ever want to delegitimize people that are hurting. And there's clearly things in our country we have to address and get the root cause of some of this. I do believe there's systematic racism in our country. There's systemic racism, but what we're seeing in the recent events is like Seattle, for instance, 6 city blocks cordoned off with barricades, fences, and people with ARs. Um, so the hypocrisy right now in the mainstream to not address these things is just lunacy. Is not even a word. I don't have a word to describe it. Just sickness. It's disgusting.
Yeah, well, I mean, so what do you notice immediately? What did they do? They have guns. They what did they do? They set up what? Barricades. They set up walls. They cordoned an area off to do what? To keep people out. But yet they want the borders to be open and free flowing so that anybody and everybody can come through. That's the part, just like you said, such hypocrisy. And you don't see the mainstream attacking any of these people because, well, they're part of that mainstream, unfortunately. And then you see leaked videos here and there. I know Project Veritas does a lot of it, but basically they went, and I just saw a brief clip of it. And then the lady was talking about how, yeah, they organized and set up the riots on purpose. It was all set up, it was all planned. It's not one of those things that just happened, with people's emotions getting out of hand. No, everything was planned out, and it doesn't surprise me. Like, you see piles of bricks everywhere, so that when these Antifa and whatnot people are out there doing their thing, it's like, yeah, pick up your brick on the way, so you can go and break into a store or do whatever you want. It's That's the thing that a lot of people don't see, and they don't want to believe it.
And I totally agree with that. And I think one thing I want to be cautious of, for at least myself, and hopefully we can, uh, speak to a couple other people in this regard. Like, let's not throw the entire movement out with,
No.
individuals like that, the terrorist groups, what I'm going to call them, because that's what they are. The fact of the matter is I can't go to church because it's unsafe, but we're going to enable and condone behavior that's killing people, injuring people, and burning down police stations and places of business that people have put their life savings into. They broke their back to build something. Black people, white people, Hispanic people, like, it doesn't matter what color, race, it literally, you're affecting everybody. So don't tell me this is for a movement of racial, inequality. Don't paint that picture for me, because you're lying to yourself and you're lying to our entire community. But let's not forget that there are people hurting out there. I don't think George Floyd was a saint by any means, but I do think he represents a people that I don't want to completely disregard what happened there and how people are still being affected because of the skin color, because there are issues out there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole on them, on the comment or the place that they cited, but somebody was, and this was a black person that was like, yeah, you know how many black unarmed men got killed last year by white cops? 9. You know how many white guys got killed by white cops? It was like 19 or something like that. So it's like, yeah, is it still wrong? Yeah, it's still wrong, but the news will paint a different picture for you. Is there racism in the country? Yes, there's certain key players in this country that may or may not have held the office of president that have and other highly publicized people that have caused a lot of this division in our country. It's on purpose.
And so I agree with that. And that's one thing I'm frustrated with right now is,
Mm-hmm.
like President Trump has done wonders for a lot of different groups of diversity and or ethnic backgrounds and
Mm-hmm.
different likeness. Doesn't matter who you are. If you looked at like jobs, for instance, to be able to provide a living for your family from your hands is a very good thing. Not just for you, but the generations removed from you. When you go to have the ability to provide for your family and maybe provide a vessel in which they can go to college or to a trade school or to a way to, enable a generation removed from you to prosper, that's a
Mm-hmm.
good thing. Watched, for the last 3 years, job numbers increase, new jobs, different opportunities present themselves, new college opportunities that have never been seen before. And I'm not blind to the fact that President Obama laid a lot of those foundations for some of this stuff to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But President Trump followed up with a very strong message of trying to build a strong economy because that builds all people groups. And that's one thing that I think, right now he might be doing a poor job trying to unite on some of the, because he's not as vocal as some presidents have been, but his policies have supported, and there's obviously some bad ones that I'm not even probably aware of, but most of his policies that have to do with job creations and the penal system and all that kind of stuff, he's done wonders for a lot of different people groups. But it's like we can't even see that stuff that, the welfare state is enabling bad behaviors. So something
Mm-hmm.
I heard recently was, we judge the fruit, but we never judge the root. So we see like these people, especially in like my circle, is like throwing out the black on black crimes. Like, yes, that's a real fact. That's a point that we should address, but let's not discount the fact that why is that happening at the scale it is? Where are these things happening? Inner city, urban areas. Well, why is there heavy concentration of black people and minorities in these areas? I don't think it's all by choice. I think there was a lot of coaxing that put them there through the Jim Crow laws and other areas like, things that were institutionalized post civil rights that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there was more rights given, more opportunities, but still a lot of policies that did not enable prosperity for the black community. So that's one area where I'm still like, we still have to address that. I don't have a great solution, but I think being open-minded and being sensitive to some of these things is still important.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people on both sides of the aisle, I think, are quite close-minded to a lot of things. And I think that a good way to try to move forward is to put aside our differences and then come together and try to figure something out. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I hate to be the pessimist here, but you see the track records of of people and what they do to people that are low income or minority groups or live in that Section 8 housing. They keep them there on purpose because then they can control them so much easier. That's the thing that disgusts me, is that these people are allowing themselves to be controlled because of money and because they've been relying. It's like being on a drug. They're relied on this drug, uh, government funding to keep them going. And it's like, well, you have those people that break out and they're like, no, this is not the way it should be. Hey, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to work 3 jobs. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm going to take care of my family, but I'm going to, I'm going to go get my doctorate. I'm going to go be a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you do have those people, those pockets of those people that are just like, they have enough of it. They see what's actually happening. So, trying to find those people that have broken out and people who are willing to listen, to come together, and when people are trying to come together and all it ends up in violence because people are shouting and yelling at each other. They're, whatever expletives that they want to yell at each other because they're on opposite ends of their thinking. It's like, well, that we're just going to continue to divide ourselves until we put up a hard fence somewhere, and then it's going to be like, you better stay on your side of the fence or you're going to get shot. And it's like, that's not what we should be doing. That's not what our forefathers wanted. That's not what they were, intending when they were here. It's not what they were intending when they drew up the Constitution. So
Yeah, and I agree. And I think too, I'm trying to keep things contextualized to what's going on now, and then looking at a 30,000 foot view in the lens of history and then to the future. My perspective is, yes, there's racial injustices that happen. There's people that are hateful. There's people that are just disgusting human beings that unfortunately have been broken for whatever reason. So, I'll tell a quick story from in my youth. And before I say it, I'll preface it with, by no means am I trying to compare a year of my life to, years and years of other people's, like what they had to go through. I'm not trying to make a jump at all, but just a microcosm of something I experienced at a young age that helped me give me some perspective. I was in fifth grade. Fifth grade. Before that, I was always going to a very rural, like farming community type schools. And then in sixth grade, we got the district lines got shifted or something, and we got bused into an inner city school where whites were minority. There was mostly Hispanics and blacks there, and I remember a couple of times, but one time in particular, I was in the locker room after gym class, and I was a small kid too, so it didn't take a lot. But there was 5, 6, 7 kids. I mean, literally beating the shit out of me. Like I'm on the ground in like the fetal position, getting kicked and punched, and called racial terms. And I sat there. Like I remember talking to the teacher about it, or gym teacher, and he told me, you better toughen up. Like that was his words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, those are words of wisdom. I don't know if they were probably the best things I wanted to hear then, but nonetheless, what I got. And obviously I held that like bitterness and resentment for a while, not just against those individuals, but against a race. Like, just because I'm white, you're going to do that. But you think about perspective, how often does that happen to other people that you just don't see it because you don't experience it the same way? So that was a racially driven act. However, that's been happening for how many years to a different people group. And that's where I'm like, okay, then I was bitter, I was angry. And it wasn't until I joined the military when, you go from basic, or like wherever your community is, to basic training, it's a big melting pot. You're taking dumps and showering next to naked
Mm-hmm.
dudes and sleeping under, on top or bottom bunk
Mm-hmm.
with another dude. And like everywhere you go, it's just different type of people. So you're immersed into this culture all of a sudden that it makes you think differently, makes you act differently, it forces you to talk to different people. And I remember like just barriers being broken down very quickly. Some of the most compassionate, loving individuals, helpful, Black individuals that I still, talk to these days. And it changed me. But it took that perspective of when I was younger, and I had to realize that, these people were hurting that did this to me. You don't do that unless you're hurting. You don't just go up and beat somebody up unless you have some anger, some bitterness inside of you.
Yeah.
So it gave me perspective to like even know what's going on right now, to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important point to make, is that they didn't just randomly, they were like, okay, hey, let's go beat up on Jordan because he's a white dude. There's something that caused that. They were either indoctrinated, or they themselves have a really trashy life at home. Their home lives might not be that great, and so that kind of stems from maybe having crappy parents, maybe having a single parent, whatever it may be. And so you see problem upon problem upon problem. And because normally people aren't just going to pick out a person of the opposite skin color and just going to go beat them up because, hey, that's what we're going to do today. There's some sort of reason behind it. Just like one of the podcasts I listened to, the guy was talking about the Afghanistan. We've been there, so a lot of these tribes, they've had feuds for how many years? 300 years over a rape or something that happened 300 years ago. And it's like that has been going on for 300 years. That one little, I say one little problem with that issue, that rape that happened. I'm just using an example, but 300 years ago, you have people that are, generations that are dead and gone, and they're still feuding over that one little thing that happened that long ago. You see how it just keeps going and going and going and going. And most of those people don't even know why. They don't even understand really why. It's just, oh, we hate such and such a tribe because that's what I was told as a kid. So I feel like that can be part of the problem as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you look at some of the things you see over there and try to use as a parallel example of what not to do, especially, I think when we go over there and from the military perspective, you don't have I didn't anyway, as a young kid, didn't have a very clear perspective of what we're even doing over there. It's like you're following orders and doing what you believe to be the right thing. But I don't know these people groups. I don't know the backstory. I don't know why we're fighting these people, other than the fact that I've witnessed and observed, them attempt to kill us on missions and
Mm-hmm.
planting roadside bombs. And like But then we break that down, like they're trying to defend their country, so like defending
Hmm.
against us. And I don't even know if they knew why they're fighting us, but we just happen to be there invading their country. Um, because I think over there, you see, there's a lot of good people too, but they get caught in the fallout or the ripple effect of just being there. And crap, someone came in my neighborhood. I don't care who you are. If you start shooting at my neighbors or my family, I'm probably going to shoot back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you come to a conservative gun-toting suburb, like you're an outsider, you're gonna get shot. Like that's just the way it is, and yeah, and that's a good way to put it because um, they're just trying to defend their land, their home, their property, their tribe, their lineage. They're big on their family, so I can't blame them for doing that. But um, we did what we did while we were there, and it's still going on, unfortunately, over there. I had a conversation with somebody about that the other day, um, about the war, the quote unquote war, and it's like, what are we doing? It's like let's make like prom night and pull out or something, Like, I mean,
You
come
went
on.
there, you did.
Yeah, yeah, got to
No,
pull.
either do something or get out. I agree. Let's just not just sit there and fester. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And obviously, I'm not paid to make that decision or even to speak into to why they're doing what they're doing. But it just from the outside, it is quite confusing on what we're doing. And I'm not saying I'm against it. If we have a clear mission on why we're there, like what's our vision? If our vision is to eradicate, evil people from that area, we might be there for the next 500 years. I don't know.
Hmm.
I just imagine that we're on a cyclical mess if we don't define what we're trying to accomplish there. Um, but going back to like what we're dealing with here in our country, that's one thing I try to bring towards, like me as an individual only have so much pull on myself, my family, and my influence on people I interact with. And the minimum amount of time I have to leave an impression on this world in general is like, what do I want to be known for? And one thing I always try to push towards is like being positive, being an agent of change. We can always look to history and say these white folks were evil and doing bad things, but what can I do today? What can Pete do today to help make this world a better place? And that's one area where military background type people, law enforcement people, like you might be spit on today, but you're going to put your shoes back on, put your badge back on, and honor that badge tomorrow. You're still going to
Hmm.
stand up with your chest held high, and that's something that I'm very honored to have walked among the ranks of guys like you, and in law enforcement too. Like there's so many phenomenal men and women that serve today that literally get spit on, get beat up on, and then they're going back at it an hour later. They're going back at it. You're in a house with a dying kid and been abused and beaten, and then you're expected to go and be very patient and calm. With 20 minutes later, 10 minutes later, with a whole different scenario, you're expected to have a clear mind. And it's like society is putting these people in an impossible position, and we're expecting a perfect individual. And I'm not condoning bad behavior still. I'm not saying like what happened in Minneapolis was right, but as society, like what can we do to help the situation? And I think you and I having just a dialogue and talking, like we don't know it all, but where are we blind to? What blind spots do we have that we can be spoken into and make ourselves better people to then have a positive ripple effect on others?
Yeah, and I mean, where do you start? Obviously, with a conversation on that. And I don't think all cops are inherently bad. All cops aren't inherently racist. Every black person, every white person, every Asian or whatever isn't racist. Yeah, there you have everybody's got. We're all humans. We all have sin in our lives and our hearts. That's how we are. Like that. That's just one of those things. We have bad thoughts. We have bad actions. So does that mean that that justifies any of that? No, it doesn't. But does that mean that we need to go burn our city down because of that? No, no. It's like, don't be a dumbass. Like you're burning your own house. Like, what are you doing? Like you're a dumbass. Um, but yeah, having these conversations, and I think people being willing to have these conversations versus just yelling and screaming, because I don't care what you believe. You know, most of us can agree that treating somebody like that is wrong. What happened there was wrong. Or beating somebody up just because the color of their skin is different than yours is wrong. Can we agree on that? Yeah, of course. Okay, well then there we go. That's one thing that we at least we can agree on. Let's not let this get political or anything like that. Let's talk about our core values or core beliefs
Mm-hmm.
instead of uh, you know you know all this political crap. You see all this pandering and virtue signaling, which is disgusting. It's stupid. And let's throw all that aside. Let's talk about the core. Like what do we need to do? Do we need to help mentor these kids that are not you don't have good role models in their lives? Yes, we do. We as good upstanding human beings need to do that for those kids. Somebody has to be a role model. Maybe it's the teacher. A teacher is the one thing that has, or one person that has a lot of influence on a child. I mean, look at it. Look how much time they spend with that child. How many hours a day for the majority of the year. And so like teachers can be a huge influence. So I think that'd be a good place to start, because they're in school from the age of 4 or 5 years old. You start at that point, and then you give them a good foundation, basically.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, so often today in schools, it seems like, and there's some phenomenal teachers, but I've also witnessed some very poor behavior with pushing an agenda, a very political agenda at a young age. And in Washington State, we're seeing some disgusting things come out of like this new sex education program we're trying to push on our kids starting in kindergarten.
My
Like literally
gosh.
telling the kids to go and Google genitalias, as they say, or penises, and, see what they look like and compare them. And like just some of the stuff in the curriculum, um, it's evil. It's disgusting. I mean, there's not a word for it. And that's a concern. But I do think you're right. Teachers do have a lot of time with these kids. Kids are very impressionable. So a good teacher can make a kid or break a kid. I truly believe this, because we speak words, and words have power. In the mouth, I believe that we have the power of life and death with the way we talk. Our actions as well. And, we're being in South Carolina just now, my wife and I, it's our anniversary. We're walking down the street, doing some shopping or something. And at this point, it was still relatively peaceful in South Carolina and Simpsonville area. They did a phenomenal job at policing their city.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the tactics they deployed were phenomenal. But anyways, that was my opinion anyways. But during the day, we didn't even know there was protests going on. Honestly, just wasn't paying attention. We were doing our anniversary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this white girl, evil, angry white girl. Maybe she's not evil. I shouldn't paint her that strongly, but her actions were definitely on the borderline evil, with the way she was treating people that were passing by, judging them by their actions, by just simply walking. And she literally screams in my face, to my wife's face, like, if you're not here with us, you're not a Christian, and just went off on us. And, obviously we didn't even respond to her. We just kept walking. And literally minutes later, we went to a Starbucks, and I was about to pay, and a Black family came in, and I just felt like, I don't know what's going on I don't know what's in the heart of some of these people, why there's so much anger, but I want to know. And like, they're just this like feeling like I should pay for this family. And like, anyways, so that being said, I paid for their coffee, and so they went through order. And then after they're done, I went and paid, and the guy serving them said like, hey, this guy paid for your coffee. And you watch their demeanor, and they like, so it's probably a husband and wife scenario, like 60 years old, and their daughter probably about my age.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch them break down in tears. And she's like, so they came and hugged us, and, clearly the coronavirus is not an issue, but they felt love. They felt a connection with us. And I don't know these people, but I just felt like, I could share love today. I can share compassion with people. I didn't do anything racist in my entire life that I can remember. I don't remember any like act, but I can still be empathetic. It's like if someone in your family has just died, you didn't kill that person. You didn't cause them to have an illness. You didn't shoot them. You didn't do anything, but you still go in there and you say sorry. You apologize. You empathize with where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I was just at. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I want to know, and I want to be empathetic to what's going on in their worlds. And I remember that, like, that girl just breaking down, and she was crying, and she gives us hugs, and she's like, hey, can I get a picture of you guys? And she's like, people need to feel this. She needs to feel that most Americans really want like the best for each other. Yep. And there's a minority that the media unfortunately paints in a bad light. But I think through small acts of kindness, and clearly there's a lot more profound things you can do than buying coffee, but there's just moments in life that we can make a big difference in people's lives. Probably by shutting off the media first, but it's just one of those situations. It's like the polar opposites, like someone screaming on a pedestal and trying to change the world by being angry. versus a small act of kindness that, instilled in these people. Like, we're not, and I told her, like, I'm not for rioting. I'm not for this evil kind of protest, but I am for you. I'm for what we're trying to do as a country to move forward towards equal, equality and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's great that number one that you shared that with us, because I don't, to me that doesn't feel like you're virtue signaling or you're pandering to a specific race or anything like that. It's just one of those things. It's just an act of kindness, an act of love that I think that can be shared with anybody, and it shouldn't be judged as, well, you're just a white person trying to virtue signal to the black people. No, it's not that at all. You don't know what's on my heart. You're judging me, but yet you don't know anything about me. And so I think that there are, a lot of people out there on, of all colors that are like you and I. Like, look, dude, we're America's the biggest uh, pool of different people from different backgrounds, different countries. We have the most diversity in any country in this world. Think about it. How much diversity we have here. And it's like, well, why can't we just, let's all just get along, as they say. And so it can be done. We just have to respect each other's beliefs, each other's thoughts, ideas, and whatnot. That doesn't mean that we have to sit there and yell at each other and be like, well, you're not a Christian if you're not going to be out here like me yelling at other people. Like, come on, get out of here, get out of my face. Like, you don't know me. And so, we're all very quick to judge. We're all human beings. We're all make mistakes. We're not perfect. And so I think that by doing things like that, um, and I do see that somebody could take that the wrong way and be like, oh, you're just trying to virtue signal to the black people and this and that and the other. But obviously that couple, those people, they saw what you actually meant to say or meant to show, which is great, because that gives us all hope that, hey, look, we can get together. We can all get together. We can all hang out. Who cares? Who cares what color your skin is? Because guess what? I believe on the, we're going to die. We're going to be judged accordingly by God. And at the end of the day, guess who's going to heaven? Those that follow the word and go accordingly to that. And what color are they? Every color of the rainbow, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There, hell, it might even be some aliens in there. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, who knows? Well, the dumb thing about that, that's one thing. I think if you have a brain cell or two inside, you can break down some components of these kind of situations and understand. You can have multiple scenarios playing out at the same time. You can have anger in your heart. You can have about like what's going on, but you can also have a reasonableness to, I don't bow down and kiss people's feet, because then I know it's been pretty mainstream these days. Like, I only bow down to one person, and that is true. Like, I have one person that I put among everybody else, and that's my savior. Like, that's my belief system. I don't know if it's yours, but it's mine, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to treat all people with respect and dignity based off how I believe. And we always have areas of growth. But like another example, pulling out of the race scenario, was like, I remember when I was a trooper, I had arrested this guy for driving on suspended license. And it's a pretty minor crime typically. So, I did arrest him, put him in the backseat of my car, and identify, by myself. So a lot of times I try to break down, if I have a arrestable offense, I will arrest somebody, put them in the car, and then let things sort out. And then at times I'll cite them with a criminal citation, and I'll let them go if there's a responsible party there, and then set a court date, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to take them to jail, but they are physically arrested at this point. But I remember it was like a crappy SUV, pretty junky, and you can tell they weren't very well off. And literally, so they put, I arrested him. And then when I figured out that, it's this guy's a crazy criminal past, the likelihood of him showing up in court was relatively high, set him a court date, and the driver and the passenger switched. The passenger had a legitimate license, and they sit there for a bit. I take off. And, but I did release him on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So then like 30 minutes later, I'm in a small town, and it's, 1 a.m. and, they get to a gas station, they pull in, and I just happened to be sitting there. And I remember them sitting there for a while, and it was just kind of awkward. They didn't pull to the pump, but there was nothing opened.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked over there, and I'm like, you guys all right? And they're like, well, kind of stuck here till morning, because all we had was a few bucks cash, and you can pay at the pump, and that was it. So, and I'm not trying to get accolades from this or whatever, but it's like, I went and put $20 in my own cash in their car to get them out of there to keep, be able to, be on their way and not just be stuck in a podunk area. So the fact of the matter is, like, I arrested somebody for a crime. 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, I'm paying for their gas to go on. And the idea is, like, we can be human beings and have to physically do things like arrest somebody, and then with 20 minutes later, show love and compassion on them, that they're still people, they're still human beings. And that's one thing I think so often we paint people with a broad brush, and we don't try to even think about that there's more than just one layer to this person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good thing to do, to in that situation. Yeah, you're a better person than I don't know if I would have done the same thing in that situation. um but yeah, I think that we definitely we can make the hard decision, but then turn around and we can still show love and compassion. I don't think that that should not be a foreign concept to us. And speaking of minorities, like the Asians, how, like, has anybody thought about the Asians and how much they're being discriminated against? Like, who was it, Harvard or Yale or one of those? They were like legitimately not allowing uh, Asians to come to their school or whatever it was. They were only limiting them because there was so many of them. So we're gonna bastardize them, or tell them they can't join our school because they've sat and studied and busted their asses and done their homework and whatnot, literally, and we're not going to allow them in here because we have too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really hear much about that.
No, that's a good point. And I think I don't know enough about that issue or whatnot to try to speak into it intelligently. But I guess just the big picture is, looking at scenarios in life and how I can be quick to judge. That's one area where I've kind of purposed to change, is to slow down and let the situation unfold and try to gather more facts before I just jump down someone's throat. And even if from the onset it looks like just blatantly like ridiculous, man, I'd hate to be the guy that judges that guy, and then all of a sudden a ton more evidence comes out and you're like, holy crap. Like, I've heard some stuff even for this case that isn't being talked about. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, we get trained on certain things as a law enforcement officer, like excited delirium, things, if you have drugs in your system, like superhuman
Mm-hmm.
strength that could potentially come out of just nowhere, this rage type, strength, and excited delirium caused by, the ripple effect of using drugs, and it could potentially stop your heart. So I had heard even in the body cam, from one of the officers saying something like, should we move the guy? And they said, no, let's keep him here. Like, I'm worried about him, and excited delirium. And I'm not justifying his actions still. I'm not, but I'm just saying there's always more to the story typically.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, like, in this situation, nothing appeared to be a race driven thing, but we painted that guy as a racist immediately
Mm-hmm.
based off a couple people's words, like the mayor of Minneapolis. Like, this racist act. He was a dude on the ground. Doesn't matter what color he is. It was wrong. Um, that this guy had to die. Like, nobody wanted that to happen, I guess. And I don't even think that officer did, but we're going to paint him and put words and thoughts in his mind and judge him accordingly. Um, but we don't know that maybe he hadn't slept for a week because he'd been working late shifts and working on reports and doing his job. And dude was just physically and mentally just wiped. And
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't thinking rationally. It doesn't justify the behavior. But if you haven't worked a day as a cop or 3 days on patrol as a military guy, like out in the field, or like a nurse, you work for days on end, and you're wiped. So
Mm-hmm.
we judge the action of one bad thing, one bad situation, without realizing that there's a huge backstory here. Doesn't mean we let them off, but man, if you haven't been in those shoes for a minute, you better slow your roll on how you're judging these people.
Oh,
I'm assuming it's going to come back to you.
no, well, yeah, you're gonna you have had a lot of people that immediately, since it's a white guy and a black guy, white cop, black suspect or criminal, immediately it's racist, and it's like, no. And right after it happened, whoever it was, some mainstream media reported that he had racist things in his past, and he's been known to be a racist and this and that and the other. And it's like, that's all ginned up. That's all the stuff that they ginned up themselves, and anything and everything they twisted to make it sound like he was a racist. Was he a
Mm-hmm.
racist? I don't know. I don't know his heart. That's because that's where you can say somebody's not a racist and they might actually be one. Who knows? Or the opposite. You don't know what's in their heart. That's what's important. And so, yeah, I agree. Whatever happened was bad. It was a terrible thing that happened. But let's take that 30,000 foot view, as Jordan says, and let's see what's going on here. We've all, so many people have condemned the action of what happened. Yep. You know, but dude was a criminal. He had a long rap sheet, had fentanyl in his system, had drugs in his system, and so there's a lot of things at play. It wasn't just like, hey, the cops like, oh, I see a black dude, I'm gonna kill him today. That's not what happened. And I really think that we as a society are very, very, very judgmental. I mean, look at the pictures people take, especially females, young girls. Look at the pictures, the provocative, racy photos they take. Why? Because people are so judgmental.
Yeah, and there's no
Everything.
reason, no, there's no like coincidence that suicide rates are where they're at across all backgrounds. Doesn't matter who you are. That's obviously on the increase, and with all the advancements in medicine and psychology and all that kind of stuff, you think we'd be getting better with that, but we're planting negative seeds in culture and society as a whole. And when you enable the idea of letting people get away with continually bad behavior, it's not a black or white thing, Mexican thing. This is a people thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you tell people it's okay to do bad things, you're going to reap bad consequences. And that's one thing I always kind of get on like people like my grandpa for being so old school, but there is a lot of legitimacy to holding a standard, because at some point when you slide, you're going to feel the ripple effect, the negativity fallout that you're going to see it's going to come. You're planting those seeds. The harvest might take a while to come, but it's going to come.
Yeah, you're gonna reap what you've sown. It may not come back for 50 years, but it will come back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you'll see a lot of people. I don't see color, I don't see race, and I'll be the first person to admit I see color, I see race. I'm a human being. Yeah, I can't not see somebody's color or somebody's race. Does that mean that I'm racist towards them, or I'm going to act differently towards them because they speak differently than I do, or whatever? No, I don't care. But for people to be like, oh, I don't see color, I'm like, well, you're full of shit. So because I see
No,
color, you know.
no, I know. It's like we say these things because they feel good. We want to like pander to somebody. Like one good example is like inspiration, motivation, or like life coaching. Some of my biggest inspirations right now are three black guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like I subscribe to their podcast. I paid big money to go to their conference.
Mm-hmm.
Like what they're doing is phenomenal. They just so happen to be black too, but they're
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal dudes. They're phenomenal fathers, phenomenal business leaders,
Yeah.
but they're black. It doesn't matter. It could be white, but it just happens.
Yeah.
What they're doing and putting out into the world right now is something that I can get behind. I'm on their mission, like, because I want to become a better father. I want to become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I want to become a better business leader. So I don't care if they're black, white, Mexican, Asian. I don't care. And that's one thing, but they are a different color than me, but they also offer something, like their culture offers something.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't take that away from them, because people have different backgrounds, and those backgrounds coming together what make this melting pot great, if we allow it to. But if we pretend to put these fake walls up and these fake plastic facades up that, oh, I don't see color, it's so ridiculously stupid, and it doesn't make any sense. But I think it's because people won't have the uncomfortable conversations, though. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's how do you have them? I think just being honest and raw, and maybe eating some crow once in a while when you're wrong.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Well, and imagine, let me think about the conversations that we've had with some of our non-white folks, and like sometimes I feel like pulling out the card that I'm a Mennonite and whatnot, but most of the time I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm just a white dude, because like you heard on the immigration episode where my oldest brother Kenneth's talking about getting beat up. We got beat up, we got ridiculed, we got messed with by white people, black people, Mexicans, everybody, because we were effing Mennonites, and it's like they were being racist towards us, and it's like, whatever, dude, who gives a crap? That it is what it is. There was is angry people being angry at us, whatever. But what you'll have is, I feel like, black people, Hispanics, whoever, you tell them, oh, I don't see color. You know what the first thing they're gonna say? Bullshit, because they see color. They see that you're a white dude, you're a Mexican, you're a black person, you're an Indian, you're a whatever race, you are. Like, they see it. So why are you going to go tell everybody else so that you can virtue signal? No, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that crap. Like, they see through your bullshit. They see through it. They're not stupid. But I mean, think about all the conversations we had with people of like all the people that we had in regiment. You had white people, you had Asians, dude, we had one of our medics. You remember? I don't know if you remember him.
Winners or Dorns or
No. He was from Ireland, straight up Irish dude. Can't remember his name. He was on Red Wings with us. Anyways, but you have people from like Dorns was black, Minters was black. Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind of
Minters. I said Winters, Minters. Yeah.
Winters, Minters. Yeah, Winter.
But
But
like Dorns, one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. The most kindest, compassionate,
so,
except for his fingers though. He had these fingers that were huge.
oh,
Dude,
yeah. Hey, easy
dude,
now, easy.
dude. So I think I'm either private or specialist. I don't remember. Maybe I'm a corporal. And I remember getting called downstairs to the med station. And I walk in there and it's like very eerily quiet. And I get called out of anybody, right? So I go in there and Dorns is sitting there. And as I walk in, he takes his gloves and he pulls them. He pulls them and snaps it, like all cinematic and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to articulate to me that I was going to have some kind of exam happening. And he's like, the way he was like portraying himself, was just like he could not but hold the laughter in, like because he's so like just jubilant who he is, just a fun personality. And
he's a big teddy bear.
Oh man, remember that? Like he puts his hands up like this. He's like, "Well, pick it." I'm like, "Oh geez."
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that story. That's hilarious.
There was more details that I don't know if I should get into today, but yeah, he's dude. Yeah, no. The thing is like you saw color there, but you didn't do anything with it. You were a brother to a brother. Like you served alongside them, and it's everybody brings something to the equation, and good and bad, man. Like think about this on a daily basis. Most people have a day or two in a week, if not the whole week, that man, some days they hit their head on the pillow and they're like, thank God I made it through another day, like barely eking by. And then we're trying to like judge them for having a bad day. There's so much like stress right now. And even before COVID, there's so much stress in life right now with trying to keep up with the Joneses mentality and trying to survive through the job. And your kids are getting sick and financially, you're just strapped and all these different added layers of stress. And most people just get by some days. And we try to then judge each other like with this strong, like virtuous platform that we can stand on, yet none of us should honestly be on that platform.
No, none of us deserves to be on any platform. And my 32 cents or my inspirational quote or my advice or whatever would be to just go with exactly what you just said. Like we're all in this together. Like don't judge somebody just because they had a bad day. People have bad days. We're human beings. We're all at fault all the time. That's the way it is. No one's perfect. And those people out there that are allowing what they see on social media, allow their lives to be dictated by that, like everybody's going to judge them for everything. It's like, you know what? Who cares about everybody else? What you need to focus on is you and your family. That's it. Who cares about what screw all the other people. Because if you focus on you and your family, that's what matters. You don't need to keep up with anybody. And that's the way it is, because you can point the middle finger at them and be like, look, dude, I'm here for my family. I'm not here to make you happy so that on social media you can throw me a like or say, oh, that's a cute dress, or oh, those are cute shoes. Who gives a shit? Like who cares? Who cares? Like dude, let's be serious. Like it doesn't help. I'd rather have somebody be like, hey man, you're doing rock solid things today. Oh, well, I just called that person in the N-word. I'm like, okay, well, you're a human being. But does that mean you're a bad person and you're a racist? No. You had a bad day. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been called a honky or a cracker around here. And so it's like, whatever, dude. I'm like, yeah, gotcha, whatever. We're all different colors. But, it's like, who cares? Don't let what other people think about you or the world thinks about you affect your day, because they don't mean anything to you. They shouldn't. The people that should mean anything to you are you yourself. That goes right back to the suicide thing, the self-worth. Have self-worth. You're worthy. You have self-worth. It's there. You just have to believe that you're worthy. Don't let social media and don't let all your stupid ass friends or what you think are your friends, dictate your feelings and dictate your day. That's on you. Don't please them. Please yourself and please your family. Boom. Mic drop. You there?
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I think one thing that the idea of all that being said and trying to contextualize different pieces of this, if you focus on your family, sure, other people matter. Other people, you should be, trying to, we all want to be part of a tribe, and our tribe isn't just our husband or wife and then, our kids. It's like there's more to that tribe that comprise of. But if you start with your home and build a strong family and teach them right and wrong, teach them about race, equality things and inequality across the board for all walks of life. You treat these things and you deal with them in the home as hard as they are. You talk about them. You raise good kids. Essentially the families make up the cities make up the states, the state makes up the country makes up the world. Like, we start small. It takes one person to make that difference. I think right now that conversation, even like, yeah, I might have done things, I might be doing things now that I don't know, or potentially oppressing somebody. I don't know. So I think one thing I've done recently is like try to reach out to different, whether it be a podcast or even watching different news outlet, just to see things from different perspectives. Because I think we come at it with our bias so strong. Oftentimes we can't see other information. And I'm not saying that just because someone's got a different point of view that you're wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But I think trying to understand that there are more points of view and more biases that should be taken into the equation than just ours. So that's an area where, I think we can all do a better job, is trying to just put down our guard for a second, be vulnerable with somebody, and be real. Because I think sometimes when you be real about some of your insecurities, it breaks down that wall. Like, I don't know what you're dealing with, but hey man, I struggle today and this is what I'm going through right now. And I'd love to hear what you're going through right now, and just kind of level the playing field that we all are people. We're all trying to survive. And at the end of the day, no one's better than anybody else. That's something I've been doing that I think proactively can help, my home and my family and potentially my neighborhood. So not sure what else advice you might have, but
No, I think that's great advice. The big thing that I got out of it was be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable, because so many times you have these people that sit there and put their business out there. They talk about themselves constantly all day, take pictures about themselves, but yet they won't be vulnerable around somebody because they're trying to put up a facade. And it's like, you'll sit here and talk about yourself all day, but you won't say, "Hey, yeah, man, I'm having a rough time. I'm having a rough go at this. Like, trying to raise a kid by myself is really rough." And it's like, guess what? Yeah, you're not the only one. There's tons of single moms, single dads out there that are on the struggle bus too. So,
oh, for sure.
it's like,
Yeah, no,
have that conversation with somebody that's willing to listen, that's empathetic. They may not have gone through that or be going through that, but they may be, they'll at least listen to you. So it's like, don't be afraid to be vulnerable with somebody, and kind of let them know, like, hey, what's going on. Just be real. I think, and also be genuine. Being disingenuous or trying to virtue signal or pander or put on a facade, that people see through that immediately. And so just be genuine, be that
be a
person that.
good dude. Be a good dude.
Exactly. Be a good dude. That's all you got to
No,
do, man. Be a
no,
good
I,
dude.
I, I agree. I full-heartedly agree. That being said, I do got to run. Yeah, it's been too long since we've been on here, so I'm glad we got to catch up again. And at the end of the day, if you're listening to this, the 5 to 8 to 15 to maybe 4, I don't know how many people listen to this, but
For
maybe 5 this week. If there's something that you're like, hey, you guys are way off the mark on this, and this is something that you should see or you should hear or you should understand. Like, dude, I don't have enough. I have pride, but not that much to say. I barely know enough to get by on a daily basis. So, yeah, definitely send that our direction. I'd love to hear some more opinions and input on this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I do not know everything, and I usually eke by every day, and I'm like, whew, made it through another day. And if you guys are feeling froggy, go ahead and email us at thedrivingloaded@gmail.com, or on Instagrams or the Facebook or whatever. Just hit us up, tell us we're wrong, and then we'll have a conversation about it. It's no big deal.
For sure. Well, have a good week, man.
You too, brother.